Right, I think that's the fourth one. We skipped the one during ETH Denver, so now we resume. So we'll be talking about access control in the constant flow agreement. So one of the often requested feature is that can the flow be closed or manipulated even by not sender or receiver, or the, of course, in worst case by a sentinel because running out of funds from sender side. But one of the feature could enable a lot of useful use cases is similar to ERC20 approval. No, that's similar, but the idea is in the same line, right? So it's access control. So you kind of approve the flow to be closable, or the flow rate can be changed by a third-party account. So that would allow that's actually backward compatible if we build such way. So I think that today's topic is about that. So, is that understandable? General thoughts? I don't know if we mentioned this feature before to who's here, the OG, Ricochet's OG, right, Mike? I don't know if we mentioned that feature before, but generally, what's your thoughts by brief description? Then to use it.
Can I get the description again?
So it's like you can approve another contract or a EOA to close your stream or even change your stream. So I think today we'll discuss the permission.
Yeah, change the stream.
Change the stream.
Yeah, change the stream would be great. Yeah, because we were talking about like refunding streams. Like if we're trying to stream in and like swap for someone or stream back, right? If we were going to stream in and stream back another coin, we basically would have to like do the math on how much do they need to add or remove as the price changes. So if we have a way that you could delegate the stream editing to another contract, then that would help, because then our keepers could essentially keep your stream fixed, right? So if you're like, I want to convert $1,000 to ETH. Well, no, it'd be the other way around. If I want to convert $1,000 of ETH to USDC, then we could basically update your stream, your ETH stream, and lower it or raise it as a function of the market moving. Am I understanding that right?
Yep.
Yeah, no, that would be good. Plus, then we could just raise everyone's stream and take all their money.
Yeah. So the one of the thing is that should we have a control of how much you can raise, right? That's probably one of the safety mechanisms.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is it kind of similar to like the operator controls with ERC 777s, or is there going to be like more granular controls with the access, like what you can do with each command?
Yeah, it would be more granular.
Cool.
Yeah. Currently, the operator doesn't even work for the agreements, I believe. Yeah, I don't think if you're an operator, you could just change how you want the agreement. It only works for the ERC 777 operation, which is .send and .transfer also. Right. Let me write it down. We'll only talk about a CFA here. So is there anything in your IDA we need? Just for future reference, I guess.
On the IDA front, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I can't see a use case where, well, it already is the case that the contract can edit your IDA allocation, but I can't see a reason why. No, I don't think there's something.
Right. Okay. Does anybody else have thoughts? I'm sure you were the one that Tony, you were the one that mentioned that a lot. The ACL, right? So is that
yes?
Could you describe to everyone your use case so that everyone have some context?
Yeah. So the use case is basically, so look, what do we help people. So we basically deploy super apps, which allow users to stream to the super app, and then the super app streams to the merchant. Now we take care of a lot of stream splitting and kind of unify the accounting process. Now the ACL might be very useful for us to do a lot of kind of convenience things on the UX front. So well, no, I mean, it can actually be useful in many different ways. So first of all, the first thing which you could potentially enable are variable case subscriptions. So what we've seen speaking to a lot of customers is that a lot of these kind of subscription plans are variable. So let's say it's $10 a month, $10 a month for this month. But then suppose you add another user to your plan, then next month it's $15 a month. Now, if let's say we as a service provider or the protocol were able to increase your flow rate kind of for the user automatically, so the user doesn't have to automatically like come in at the end of every month and just manually increase their flow rate, we actually get very close to we can actually begin to serve this use case. Now, usage-based subscriptions are huge, especially in the kind of, if we look at the big name crypto SaaS players. So if we look at the RPC guys, Alchemy and Fura, if we look at the data guys, Nonsense, Dune, and so forth, these businesses all have usage-based models. And this involves dynamic pricing. So if we have a constant flow agreement where at the end of the month, given some approval from the user, we can increase their flow rate, that would be really beneficial for us. Yeah, it would actually, yeah, this would be a huge deal for us. This would make our life, it'd be really, really, really good.
Okay, so you're saying that the frequency of change would be in your description was like per month, but per account, right?
Yeah, so what we'd want to be able to do is like change the flow rate from a user's account. So decrease the flow rate from user's account to a super app.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, look, also doing things like being able to close the stream at a predetermined time. I think we've already spoken about, maybe someone's already mentioned this, but this is also very valuable in our use case because this is something some people actually request, like, because not all business agreements are actually continuous forever in perpetuity. Some of them are just for a month, or they just are for quarters. So they're just recurring payments for the next 4 quarters, but then they stop. Mm-hmm. But yeah, those are some initial thoughts.
Right. Okay. So that would basically allow at least close stream and change stream kind of permission, right? I guess the change stream we have to see if we allow the the operator to change it to any number they want, or just a range or a upper bound. Yeah. So this is what we don't know. But I guess if you ask people, maybe they always say, okay, we want the upper bound, but configure to what value? Is it? I mean, I guess for you would have to be able to control it in your backend or panel or something, control panel for your users, and they would say, okay, I allow you to change my stream, but up to this amount, something like that.
Yes. From our perspective, it'd be simple if it could just be update the flow rate to the max amount, whatever that is legally allowed at that moment in time, giving you your balance. Mm-hmm. But I mean, look, I completely see about giving a range is also nice, and that's also manageable.
Yeah, it's like Erc20 have this approval allowance, right?
Yeah.
You could have like different kinds of approvals. You could have like an approval that lets you set the max rate to be what it was currently when it was set. It only lets the editor, the approved editor, like decrease it and then raise it back to where it previously was. And then you can also have like a different kind of permission where it's kind of like you're able to set different ranges upon the approval. That could be like a dual model kind of function there.
Yeah, I think since you can't set a finite amount, right, because streams are open-ended, then I guess like the idea just tell me if I'm misinterpreting, Sunny, but what I'm thinking is like basically we can say that like we can approve a contract or an EOA to create a flow of a given amount, right? Like a given flow rate, right? So like, you can create a stream on my behalf, but no more than 1 per second, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like one way to do it.
Yeah. Also, of course, there are the use cases for closing and updating a stream, but I think creating a stream would be a good idea too. If you could, like I think Charles actually mentioned this before, is like let's say like there are some some businesses that prefer to have the full amount for the month up front, right? So maybe you could in the same, I guess you could do this with the batch calls, but the idea is in the same transaction you could basically have it where a user does the ERC777.send, and then within that transfer callback, it can also create a stream on your behalf. So the idea is if I'm paying, let's say $10 a month, and I need to have the first $10 up front, then I pay the first $10, and then within that callback, it starts the stream as well, right? So you get the money up front, but you still get the benefits of streaming.
But where's that upfront money is stored? Is it in a deposit of somewhere, or?
I guess in this case, it'd be in the contract, right? So we have a contract that I approve to create streams on my behalf. So at the same time that I send, it creates a stream. It could, if you want to send it to an EOA account from there, you could also just have it, transfer that out.
Right. Yeah, I should mention one idea that maybe it's interesting to mention some parallel idea. I think Didi is original author of this idea, Didi here. It's a very interesting trick. So imagine this is a particular app that has a very small amount of it's like, let's call it a timer, balance. Or it will be clear what that means, right? So basically have an incoming stream. So the user send a incoming stream to this one, let's say 101, 1,000, but outgoing is 1,001, right? But the timer balance is, let's say 100. And so let's say per hour. So this is actually used as a timer. So it's like in 100 hours, this app would run out of balance, and then it will be jailed. So it's a pretty expensive way of doing it, but you could make a very small, like we can't count on self-destruct per se nowadays because they might remove that operation. But this is one way to actually make a kind of one-time app that I think we could use like minimum factory to make it actually affordable. So you deploy a minimum factory based app with a timer amount deposit. Do you guys follow? It's like the outgoing is slightly larger than the incoming, so it will drain the balance, and the Sentinel will close it after 100 hours roughly. So that's one of the parallel idea that we had, just to mention in this space.
I think this would be interesting in combination with closing structure, so that this only acts as a fallback, the liquidation, the expensive liquidation.
So this is for the approved closed stream by alternative. Right. So without the protocol extension, we can already achieve now today. It's like I'll do stream timer app. I'm just making up name as we go. The stream timer app can be factory minimum super app. Any thoughts on this one? I kind of liked it, but because you can decide how big this timer balance is, right? So it doesn't really matter much. But that's just for the closing stream, I guess. For the approve update, it's still not solved. We don't have a parallel solution per se. What Joshua mentioned is just upfront deposit to the app, and the app can just change the flow rate as they want, right? Yeah, I don't know how to write that.
The one thing about, like, it would be nice if you could approve an arbitrary party to close your stream for you. So like, if you look at Ricochet have this nice thing where they close your stream before you get liquidated. Now that's a nice thing that they offer, and that's something we will offer as well. And that's something which I think any protocol building on top of Superfluid will actually offer, like liquidation protection. Now, you kind of see a pattern here where if everyone is doing the same work, why not have one party kind of offering sort of stream insurance? So like Joshua, we've talked about this in the past. I think Rashkov as well, we've talked about this. So I guess that's sort of an argument for why it's nice to have a permission-based system specifically.
Are you speaking such a person that is it still need to approve certain stream for stream owner, or is it general applicable to everyone?
Yeah, so like if Alice has a stream to Bob, Alice can approve Carol to Carol, so Carol can close my stream.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I wonder if we need parameters here which restrict this permission. So for ERC20 approve and also for the flow rate updating, we said, okay, it's probably a good idea to have a parameter for an upper bound at least. And here I wonder if this should just be binary, so no permission or permission, or if we also want some restrictions. For example, we could say is allowed to close only after a given timestamp, or is allowed to close only if remaining balance is, I think in Ricochet, it's defined by how much bandwidth I still have. So I wonder what kind of parameterization we would want here.
Yeah, but
well, you can go ahead.
Approved through so those permission actually can be offloaded to the contract itself, right? So those logic could instead sitting in the CFA interface, but it could be by the I'm just trying to find what's the parameter name I should call it.
So you mean the 777 operator attempt where it's just binary, but you can have any restrictions in a contract which implements this?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, we could have even just like a single contract, right? That let's say we have one contract that you give, that this operator, this binary approval to close streams of, right? And then basically we can just have really anybody can hit the contract and, like they can hit a public function, delete a stream, but it only deletes the stream if it's within, let's say, 2 hours of insolvency, right? That way, like, for example, if we run sentinels that do courtesy closures, right? Like if somebody like Diagonal or Ricochet wants to do this, then they can basically just hit this single contract. And as long as that person's approved that one contract, and they get the protection. Because I imagine any service that pops up is going to want to protect their clients from liquidation. So, why not just have a common contract that everybody can hit? Obviously not on the protocol level, but it wouldn't be hard.
Yeah, one thing I have to say on the topic was the reason we didn't do gelato or anything was because I sort of foresaw that there would be like administrative functionality that Superfluid streams would require. So the plan was always to sort of like, okay, like Ricochet's taking care of certain things already, like closing your streams. So in the future, it was like, all right, well, rather than just, be a stream exchange, we can also, use the RIC token as payment for, you know, performing administrative functionalities on your streams. So, so yeah, I mean, but if there's like, you know, a Superfluid solution and a Superfluid token or something like that, then, you know, I think, yeah, maybe we could just all consolidate it down to having Superfluid admin functions and people paying, you know, for that insurance or that service, right? So yeah, that was my thought.
Well, one other thing on this too. So if we have, so right now a stream can be closed by the sender or receiver, right?
Yeah.
So the person who gives, let's say, a binary approval, are they giving approval for both sides, right? So let's say Alice approves this app that closes, right? Then if Bob is streaming to Alice and Bob is about to go insolvent, then would that give the app permission to close Bob's stream? Right, because you're acting on behalf of Alice and Alice can close the stream herself.
Wait, so can you repeat? So Bob sending to Alice.
All right, so Bob's streaming to Alice, and then Alice has approved a contract to close streams on her behalf if she's about to go insolvent. Well, actually, no, I guess that wouldn't work, right? Because basically the idea is if Bob's about to go insolvent, then the stream would be near insolvent. So like the app would technically have permission to close. I guess it wouldn't if Alice isn't near insolvent, but.
Yeah, perhaps it's easier to keep the semantic simpler, just semantics that if the stream operator, the contract or EOA, the backend EOA that is allowed to close the stream owner stream,
right?
Then just limit to that. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
For the off-chain case, I would say that usually it's I don't imagine that any backend would a scalable backend would only have one account. So quite often, probably the stream operator is still a contract. It's just a contract that maybe have a white listing system that the backend, like Diagonal's backend, would just list whichever address should have a permission controlled by the contract. So I guess it depends on use cases, but I think this is general enough for at least for the closed stream buy. Does this excuse me?
This may even fit into the Stroller protocol. So
yes, Didi, that's kind of what I was thinking as well.
It seems to me that on the protocol level, we don't want any parameters.
Yeah.
Just binary, and then the rest is done in a out of protocol contract.
Yeah. Do you want to give other people a context? What is Stroller? I don't think everyone knows. So.
Yeah, I can paste the link. I think Josh is actually more familiar with it than me at the moment.
Yeah, so
do you have anybody from Stroller?
I think it's just Chinmay and Harsh, and I don't think either of them are here. I have to go on Mike. I think he's gone now. But yeah, so basically what Stroller is if you're running a stream, then what Stroller can do is see if you're about to go insolvent, which you have to register and all that. Obviously, it's on-chain registration, but if you're registered and you're about to go insolvent, they have a handful of basically strategies that they can use to keep your stream solvent. So the simplest is just an ERC20 strategy. The idea is if you're streaming Super USDC and you're about to go insolvent, what they'll do is actually upgrade the USDC for you. The pattern is approve, transfer from, upgrade to, but you know that detail doesn't matter too much. But they also do it for other things too. Like there's an Aave strategy where if you have a USDC, for example, then they'll liquidate the position to get USDC and then they'll upgrade it to your account, right? So there's a few different things you can do with that. I think, I don't know how useful like an ACL would be in terms of streams with that because they're not closing streams, they're just keeping them solvent. So the idea is if you're an operator or if you have sufficient approval, then you'll be able to upgrade tokens on their behalf.
Do they come to use ERC20 or is the operator ERC777 semantic?
Oh, I guess they are just using ERC20 approval, right? Because they're using it with the underlying token.
Right. Yeah. Oh, of course.
Yeah. But of course, you can just max approve. I mean, same.
Yeah, that's probably something that I mean. The next one is I don't know if you're okay with the function name. Let's say approve close stream by. No, wait, we call it flow, right? delete flow. Is that too verbose? Any opinion about naming? I'm not best at naming things concisely.
What if we have something like approve agreement or approve agreement call, something like that, and then it can just be a little more generic, and then you can basically pass into that a parameter of, do you want this to be approval to create a flow, to update a flow, or delete a flow, or maybe a combination of them. I don't even know if this needs to exist on the CFA contract. It could be on the host, right? Because I assume if we have a GDA that's a streamable IDA, then we'd have probably similar permissions.
Yeah, I would probably keep this one a bit more. Yeah, you have to do the core agreement anyway, but just instead of update flow, delete flow, you would do the approve instead. So I don't know how a generic approve agreement would do, and probably too early for that. Let's have something first here, then let's see if we can come up with more general ACL at some point.
One thing which has been on my mind a little bit is what happens when a user gives approval to many parties, or like, do we allow the, is there only one person which is allowed to delete the flow for you, or what if they approve many different parties? And yeah, this is kind of a design thing, which it would definitely. I mean, what do you think about it, Mia?
I think why not? I don't see design. The storage design wise, there's a reason to limit it. We could allow as many as stream operator as necessary. As long as we have an event for it and we index it with our subgraph update along with this feature, then you can actually see who is approved easily. But that's usually a problem because it's not on-chain queryable.
One thing which would be nice is, so suppose you can approve many different entities, to be able to reset them all in, let's say, one transaction, or like a 01 reset of the approval parties. Because suppose you've approved too many people, or suppose one of them is malicious. I mean, you kind of already see this like in approved batch transfers, like in ERC 721, I believe, like sort of being able to batch some of these operations, I guess is what I'm trying to get at in a 01 execution time. I'm not sure how that would work on the storage layer though. But yeah.
I mean, you could run it in the batch calls, I guess, in theory, but.
Yeah, it is possible, yes. I mean, this is basically the core agreement still, right? Invoked through the core agreement, which is itself already batchable. So by default, it's batchable. And all the stream operator would have a different storage slot. So whenever someone wants to delete your flow, all the CFA does is to check if that stream operator or property exists in the storage somewhere. I think that would be the implementation that we could do very easily. Right. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. One thing worth mentioning, it would be also nice to be able to approve create flow. So a use case we have in mind is free trials. So I know, so Kurt, let's say you have a free trial to a business, and at the end of the week, you want to basically start a stream. So currently the way you would do it is, like Joshua kind of demonstrated a few weeks back, is through these meta transactions, which are a little bit messy. But if you could give this approval, be much cleaner. Because using these gas networks, I mean, economy, not verified contracts, GSM, I'm not sure it's working anymore. So yeah, that would be another useful thing.
They did finally approve, by the way, or they verified by economy. Sorry, you were saying something?
I think for that kind of approved create flow, I think it's definitely beneficial to have like a max flow for creation. Like when you're starting a subscription to like Netflix, you know, once, or whatever kind of subscription service, you know, once that free trial ends, the subscription is going to be this amount. And so when you do that kind of approve
Yeah.
approve create flow, you want to like pass in like a max flow rate.
Very good point, Sonny. See, that works when. So that's all right. So that's nice. So that works when we the price, we know the price beforehand, which I guess we kind of would know in the free trials case. It's probably, but like, is there maybe a scenario where we have a dynamic price which we don't know until runtime? Possibly. That's at least the case with the approve update flow, which has to be dynamic. So this has to be like this is very much based on usage based, which we only know at the end of the month. But yeah, good point.
Mm-hmm. So do you,
Tony, one thing that you guys could actually do if you had more of a kind of unlimited approval is that you could basically have a completely Web 2 experience where the user logs in with email and then they click a button and you open the stream to the merchant for them. So they wouldn't even need to sign with MetaMask at all. You can just pay the gas, no signature needed because they've already approved you, right? So
that's clean. Yeah, that's actually very nice. Yeah, thank you for that, Fran. Can we get the max approval on that?
max approval.
How about having something like approve flow rate? So not making it specific for create or update. And then like Erc20, it could just be maximum.
So we're talking about this max flow rate, right? Are we talking about this like approve create flow by, and there's max flow rate. You could set it either as maximum value, like max int 96, everyone likes this type. And would that work? Like, okay, if I say I trust this flow operator, I just say allow it to create maximum flow rate for me.
Yeah, I'm just not sure if it makes so much sense to force this distinction between create and update. And something like
that's my next question. Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Could make sense.
That's my next question. Should we have a distinction between creation and update?
I think they're doing similar things. So what if we had a max flow rate for create and update, and then we just have a binary system for delete? Because delete is kind of in its own class.
Yeah, yeah.
It could also be a Boolean flag and approve flow rate, which says if it's also allowed to create if it doesn't exist.
So this one right here would be with all these, but we can also do just all in one, right? What that called? CFA approve flow operator. And the guy that can do anything. Do you see any case that you would limit? I mean, you can always limit in the logic of the flow operator itself, right? The flow operator could be a contract. You can add limit everything there. That would be the alternative. So if it's a contract, you basically allow the contract only with certain operations, especially if it's a simple contract without upgradability. I don't know if it's a good idea. In terms of ERC20, it's basically like that. You approve just one address and whatever that address is, EOA or a contract, we just trust it. Users just trust it. So the variety B would be just kind of like a ERC 777 operator, but it's for the flow only, like a flow operator for the sender. Any opinion? Which one you prefer more? Granular or simpler?
I'm kind of leaning towards a simpler after hearing your kind of like logic there with, we're so used to approving max for ERC20 tokens. Why not approve max for streaming? It's just another way of transferring tokens. So I think that kind of makes sense to me.
Personally, selfishly, I like the simple one, but I can definitely see arguments for why you want more granular permissions. Like from a user's perspective, like, do I really want to approve flow operator? Does that really, like, I can see reasons why you want to approve someone to delete a flow, but not like create flow or update flow. Like stroller protocol, if they can save me, but I don't necessarily want them to start spending my funds anywhere apart from just that scenario. Maybe you can partition the simple one, into 2 buckets. One which is like approve for like stream creation and update. So this is sort of like money out of your account, and then the second one is sort of approve to like delete, I guess, again. So you combine update and create, and then yeah.
I like that.
My naming here, I'll just make it really long for now. Approve, delete, flow by right, so just 2 varieties. Yeah, but since we have a batch call anyway, so if you want to do both at the same time, that's still batchable. So to user wouldn't be a huge difference.
There's, I think, another argument for a simple version is that it makes it more likely to have tool support. For example, something like being able to understand in MetaMask what you're signing. That must be valuable, I think.
How do you mean?
I mean, at the moment, it's probably not the case if it goes through call agreement anyway. So as a user, when you sign, you always just see hex strings. You don't really know what you sign, and you basically have to hope that the DApp is not compromised. But if we go towards a token-centric interface, then we will get that advantage of simpler interfaces being maybe better visualized by something like MetaMask.
By simple, you mean the version B?
Yeah, for example, the version B here. Because approve is one of the few contract calls where MetaMask actually explicitly tells you what you're doing.
But you're talking about only ERC20, it has its special interface, right? ERC20 approve. Your point is, if we make only one function, there's higher chance they could make an interface just for that.
Yeah, also with in view of a possible token standard.
Right. I don't know how to decide, but from implementation perspective, I think it would still make sense to separate the storage out, because with this version B, we could easily make the implementation that the flow operator is the one that does everything. But with the version C, we can even still support this simpler interface, but they are just a combination of these two, right? So this could be just a wrapper of the above 2 function. Version C in a way. Okay, so let's say if we have this approval mechanism in the CFA, I'm just curious, like for a service like Diagonal, how would you build a backend service nowadays? Are you trying any attempt for decentralized or just rather a centralized backend? Or I'm just trying on the tangent, just trying to understand what's the on the ground use case for this. Like if you want to run a backend service, how would you do it?
Yeah, I mean, look, yeah. So what if you have a backend service? So I mean, initially it would be centralized to get a kind of proof of concept that this works and people actually like it. But then how do you decentralize a bot network? I mean, I think that there are loads of good examples of this. You can use your own token to incentivize people here. You can have bot runners stake your token. If they don't operate correctly, they get slashed. I mean, this is largely kind of how Gelato works. The issue of kind of using something out of the box like Gelato, I think, like Mike mentioned previously, is it's very rigid by using a kind of a pre-built decentralized bot network for you. For example, Gelato, all of their resolvers, like the way they figure out if I should execute a task or not is they just keep querying the smart contract, and then or they keep querying an IPFS like slot. But I mean, all right, we don't need to get into that much detail, but Meow, does that make sense to you? I think there's a gradual path towards decentralization of off-chain bot networks being scheduled towards this.
But do you have any thoughts that might be the candidate for you to try the prototype at some point, the decentralized version? Is there any candidate for you at the moment? Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have many users who want the usage-based subscriptions. I can give you users. They don't necessarily care about the technology, how it works in the background, centralized or decentralized, if I'm frank, at least in the short term. Because the truth is, a lot of these businesses want to get paid in crypto, is in subscriptions, and there's just no good way to do it right now. But yeah, there are many good examples of the data guys, the RPC guys I mentioned before, analytics people who really want usage-based subscriptions.
So the reason I'm asking is just trying to understand like end-to-end how it's being used, because the design we're talking about here has no incentive mechanism, right? It's not the link to a Sentinel or anything. So it's interesting to hear how you would use it. So it sounds like it would be starting with a centralized backend service, since your user wouldn't be bothered by how it's done anyway. So that's a reasonable start. But I just want to think a bit broadly. Is there any possibility when build an incentive mechanism?
I mean, there's definitely a possibility for us if we run the bots, but doing it on the Superfluid level, I guess, is that what you're asking? Or like on the protocol level?
Yeah. Since we have time, I just want to run a little bit more. So for example, I give an idea, right? So approve flow, a wide idea, right? Approve flow update condition or something, approve flow condition. So this will be a flow condition calculator, whatever contract, right? So you allow this contract, a abstract contract that can come up with a condition if your flow, let's say this contract can read your current balances, can have actually complex contract. In the end, it will return Boolean. The idea is that once a Boolean is true, then anyone can actually close it, including Sentinel, right? So that would be a incentive mechanism potentially, right? So that's just a wide idea. I'm just throwing it out.
No, I like it. I like it. And this works. I imagine this would be very good for many use cases, specifically where this on-chain verifiable, the logic. I mean, this is basically you're doing Gelato with smart contract resolvers, just on the protocol layer, which is really cool. I mean, that's something we would look to. Yeah. But I also think there is a valid use case where, for a lot of these guys, unfortunately, the logic to determine how much you should be charged at the end of the month is off-chain based. So this is sort of.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean,
imagine with this, right? So this calculator actually can use the off-chain information such as Oracle of the dollar stablecoin exchange prices. So we have an incentive mechanism that allows the flow to be updated by Sentinels according to the, of course, the incentive. Maybe if it's updated too often, right? So how much would you pay for the one that, I mean, we haven't talked about a fee mechanism yet, right? So imagine you want to have a variable rate. You now need to run a monthly update mechanism that according to the calculation you have, right?
I think that's a really great idea. I really like that actually. Offloading this.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
because
this could
we have
even. No, keep going.
Yeah, sorry. So I was just thinking that we have a Sentinel network already. We can actually leverage a lot of features into it, right? So once we have, the more fee we can build in, the better for the Sentinel network. Actually, the better for the protocol even, right? So.
I mean, exactly. I mean, look, we would have to run 2 bots. We already run our custom Sentinels. We already fork the Sentinels, run our own custom Sentinels. So we will build a separate bot network. It makes a lot more sense to me to do this in a community based collectively, like only running one bot, one type of bot, and many different people participate, because then it grows organically and is decentralized by like creation, by spirit as well. I mean,
yeah. Would you mention for? I think I'm first time I hear about it. So what's your specific version of Sentinel? I mean,
I mean, look, we just fork the Sentinels because we keep track of people's balances. So let's say your subscription is running low, we send you an email or a notification. So the Sentinels have this monitoring logic kind of built in where you monitor people's real-time balances, and it's a very easy fork and so forth. I know the Stroller protocol, how they're doing the same. They're going to do a similar thing where they're forking the Sentinels. Maybe Joshua can speak about this. Where they're embedding some custom logic. Is that correct, Joshua?
Yeah, it's what they're planning on doing right now.
Yeah.
I mean, well, we're doing like a simplified script for now, just as like a, cron job. But yeah, ideally, like it seems like pretty much everybody that, is going to be running any of these bots are going to be essentially forking the Sentinel and adding their own function, right, to replace the liquidation if they're trying to protect clients.
Yeah.
All right, if you don't mind, let's maybe brainstorming a specific scenario, right? Let's say we approve a flow update condition that the calculator does such that it calculates what's the price between, I don't know, ETH to dollar exchange rate. So if the so let's say I'm trying to pay send a stream like 1 ETH per month, but I'm sending in stable coins, right? So this one would say, okay, read from a oracle, right? Like knowing the ETH DAI exchange rate, and if ETH DAI rate deviate from my okay, also I need to read the current flow rate of the sender. So there's a sender flow rate. So if this is flow rate more than the let's say only 20% margin. I'm not writing correctly here, but something that if you outside of, then we allow, so we return true, meaning that allow Sentinel to change flow rate of sender to track the current ETH DAI rate. It's just a very hypothetical example, right? And also the Sentinel will have a tip amount. So Sentinel could actually wait. So that true condition can be triggered for quite a long time, but maybe the tip amount, okay, the tip amount is not accumulating. So that's probably a problem. So the fee, how can we make a fee grow over time so that Sentinel would have a incentive to actually do that operation? So but we can think about more. But that's the idea, so that you have a
Yeah.
condition calculator and you allow Sentinel to operate that. Yeah.
The one thing about, I mean, how does a Sentinel charge for this? So like, look, if you look at these other bot networks, like let's say Gelato, they currently don't charge a fee. You just pay for the gas executed. So if the Sentinel, and the way you pay for that gas is you have two options. Either you deposit money into your Gelato wallet, wherever that may be, and then they withdraw from that. Or you, in the resolver code you have here, you have basically a line where you do transfer from to Sentinel or to, so how does the Sentinel get paid in this scenario? But yeah, how does he get paid? I'm not sure.
Right.
Like,
So,
go on.
So let's try again to see if it works. So we let the condition calculator return not only true or false, but also return a tip amount at the discretion of the contract. The calculator itself, it will calculate how much tip it should be. So you kind of, if you approve it, you kind of know the logic, how much tip it would calculate. It's not really answer the question. You kind of just offload everything to the contract, I guess. It's pretty hard to calculate it still, but it's general.
Could you make it kind of automated auction where it starts at 0 and the condition becomes true, and with every block the incentive grows, something like that?
Yeah, so it's a bit hard to know when the conditions start to be true, right? There's no on-chain record.
No, that.
What if, so if you're doing this, it's to maintain a, to stay as close to sending 1 ETH per month as possible, right? So you could increase the tip amount as the price deviates, right? So if the price stays within the same range, there's no reason to have a heavier incentive. Whereas like if the price starts deviating drastically, then we should have a higher tip amount, right, for priority.
Right, in this case, it could be a function of the delta.
Yeah, and it's very specific to the calculator, right? So from the approval function, it's kind of abstract away.
Yeah, but even
I don't know.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Now, even for example, thinking about the closing use case, you could say, okay, when the condition that the string could be closed first becomes true, then the incentive is 0, and it grows to some maximum, which is when the string becomes insolvent. I think there could be different models for different use cases.
Right. Okay. Okay, just one wild idea. I think there's something in it. Yeah.
I think this is a great idea, Meow. And it kind of goes on the path which people, I mean, we've talked about kind of not in here, but outside, is the Sentinels can become really powerful, and kind of running community and like community run Sentinels where they become much more composable. So like what Meow, I know Mike talked about, like DApp node of something, or yeah, maybe Joshua can speak to this as well. But I like the idea of having smart contract resolvers and the ability to have these nice features already offloaded to the Sentinel.
Yeah, I guess that speaks to the what is programmable mean. We always say about it, right? So there is composable, we kind of do composable, but we don't have the, what do we lack? Probably what we're discovering here is an incentive, like generalized incentive mechanism for so currently we only have an incentive for closing the stream, but which is a necessity, not just a programmability. We have to guarantee the system solvency, but we could generalize it, make it not only for the system health, but also for the system user programmability. I guess that's, I guess I would put into the programmable cash flow. That's what we call our protocol, right? Programmable cash flow.
Well, on the so on the incentive mechanism, so there's been a little bit of discussion in the Sentinel chat that we put together. We did a call on Monday, and we were basically talking about how, like, what we could do, and something that like we're kind of shooting to do is, for one, generalizing the Sentinel for any use case. So that way, like, instead of everybody having to turn around and fork the Sentinel and then, you know, build their own modules on top of it, the idea is that you can just import the Sentinel and then add specifically whatever you want to do to it. And so this is good for a few reasons. For one, it'd be great if I could have a single Sentinel that does multiple tasks. So for example, like if I want to run liquidations with a Sentinel, then I can do that. But if I want to run a Ricochet Keeper, it'd be nice if I could run it on the same, essentially the same aggregation layer, right? If I run 2 Sentinels in parallel, then we're duplicating the work of having to aggregate Superfluid related data. But the idea that we were having here, and something that Chenmei has been mentioning too, is like, it'd be cool if we could have like, not even necessarily a billboard or like a bounty board, but essentially like we could have a sort of registry of like, you know, hey, this is a contract that, you know, you can close the stream before it's insolvent, and we incentivize it with, let's say, a governance token, or we incentivize it with this, or in the case of like, you know, updating this flow rate, we'll incentivize it with, you know, some sort of tip amount, right? So just having like, not just a more general purpose Sentinel, but also having, you know, a sort of list of things that you can do with it.
I mean, Meow, how do you think a potential Superfluid token could interact with this incentive mechanism? So this is sort of, maybe I'm pushing it a little bit, but this is sort of, I guess, the natural progression of incentives and bots and that work. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I want to put it to the record. Maybe fees in the token, right? I don't know. Yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, this might be something. Yeah. Joshua, yeah, I'd like to understand that more, what you just said, but I think, but I hope that we don't have. So one thing that maybe I'm miscapturing something, but one thing that I think it's not good is that if you have too many single dependencies in the network, so the diversity of the network is still important, since the solvency is part of the function of the Sentinel network. So that still need to be diverse enough that not one software would fail everything, right? So maybe I misunderstood something here. I think I did. So yeah.
Yeah. So the idea, and I've mentioned this before, but I think, like, you know, the optimal Superfluid protocol is one where nobody gets liquidated, but everybody stays solvent, right? And so for now, we have plenty of liquidations that are happening, and there's you know, enough profitability that we can assume that the network is going to be solvent, right? But you know, at the end of the day, like, Superfluid is more a framework for people to build on, right? Like, so as more people start building on Superfluid, everybody wants to protect their own clients, right? Like, if there were 2 diagonals out there, one that protects from liquidation and one that doesn't, I would take the one that protects from liquidation. So it seems like basically every provider or every service that's, you know, building on Superfluid is eventually going to have some sort of protection against liquidation, and they're probably going to run their own infrastructure to do it. And so, yeah, so the idea with the Sentinel is that, like, for example, if for Diagonal's case, like maybe Charles doesn't want to run liquidations on Superfluid, all he wants to do is protect his clients, then he should be able to import this Sentinel and say, all right, on like an event handler saying, hey, an account is 2 hours from insolvency, just close the stream for him, right? Use maybe this access control layer, or use something they built in. But, you know, what he could do is have his own, basically his own functionality inside of here, his own ABI that he interacts with. But then, like, what I would want to do personally, like what I would personally love to do is if I could run liquidations on tokens that I'm picked for, but then separately run maybe a Ricochet Keeper, or as Diagonal decentralizes, then I could run a sort of Diagonal Keeper. So like, I would personally run it, you know, multiple on the same aggregation layer, but that doesn't necessarily mean everybody will, right? Everybody's going to use it for their own use case.
I would just comment that when you say you would take care of your own infrastructure, but I guess you meant your own infrastructure or your own turf is more like a specific token. But for a more general usable token, like a stable coin or something, it's kind of situation that there's no kind of your own solvency, because solvency is shared. You can't have your own solvency in that sense, right? So I just wanted to point out that's what I understand. So, for example, DAI, you can only take care of your user base, when using DAI, but the solvency of the entire DAI actually affects you also. But when we talk about a Ricochet token or other token, which is your own platform token, sure, that makes sense. So that you can only take care of your platform token. That's how I understand it.
Yeah, I mean, there is still kind of just the general problem of how do we actually price any of this, right? Like, I mean, this using a tip amount based on exchange rates, that's one thing, or based on time is another thing. But this is still kind of the concern on even the base layer, like Sentinel network, is like, what if a stream isn't profitable to liquidate, right? And really all we're doing, like the profit that we're making, or the money that you make as a Sentinel is really just to cover gas, right? Like it's, especially for some of the smaller tokens, you're only trying to cover gas. And so you could try and have some sort of Oracle system, right? Like, I don't know, if you want to pay in a stable, then like how much in US dollars is this liquidation going to cost? And then try and price it like that. But I don't know. It's a tough problem to solve, but I do like the idea of having, like, if everybody's doing their own, governance tokens or their own tokens to do this kind of thing, like that's one way to kind of bootstrap it. But, like I said, I don't really have a perfect answer for how exactly to price these things.
Yeah, I don't know either. If we can come up with a specific example, I guess one of the takeaways that for implementation nodes, we will go forward for sure with one of the variety, perhaps C. So we will have this base mechanism in 1.2 in estimation. The implementation should be fairly straightforward. So we'll have that, but I think we could open a future discussion more regarding the incentive mechanism to build in, not only for CFA, but also perhaps for the IDA or any other agreements we build in the future. So make the Sentinel kind of more profitable. All right. So we're actually releasing 3P features. I think we'll have an announcement that's also increasing the Sentinel profitability, but with this probably even more. So if you can come up with some sort of tip calculation example for specific use cases, and you don't also want the Sentinel to update your flow too frequently and charge tips too frequently, right? So you probably still have a bit more logic than just calculating the tip amount, but also the frequency you want the change to happen. Each time you pay a tip, it can be hefty, and you don't want that to happen too often. Probably Tony, you guys are subsidizing anyway, right? So you pay the gas fee and
we take care of that. I mean, so does Ricochet as well, pay the gas fees.
Right, they take big fees, all right?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, yeah, something like that I've heard.
Now I have a question here. How is the flow condition calculator? So how is that different from an operator model? Is it that it tries to bring it into the protocol, or what's actually the difference? Or is it more restrictive?
You decentralize the bots. So with the operator model, you approve one operator, which I assume is one bot, maybe my mental model. But with this resolver model, anyone is fair game to execute. Yeah.
Well, but couldn't you achieve the same for an operator? So an operator, it's just a contract address, and that contract address can, I guess, implement the same you could implement in such a condition model.
So flow operator doesn't.
I think the difference is how much knowledge the protocol needs to have about the mechanism.
I think the difference is that a flow operator here doesn't have the power or permission by default to take the tip unless you do a ERC20 approval over the super token actually, right? So it doesn't have the power to take tips. So, and then we don't really know what kind of tip model we would have for the second model for now, right? So because this permission doesn't imply the ERC20 approval for the flow operator. That's probably the difference. But you're right that we could emulate that we just ERC20 approve a flow operator, a kind of gelato resolver, and also approve the flow of permission, the ACL, and then the flow operator can also charge it any number of tips, can rock pull you even, right? So I don't know.
Well, I do kind of like the idea of having like on the protocol level, just having that very simple, like, is it approved? Is it not approved? Right. And then like whatever that approved address can be, like that can be a smart contract that can implement their own incentive mechanism. Right. So like it doesn't necessarily have to be on the Superfluid level. Like Diagonal could have their own contract, right, that people approve as an operator. And it has its own set of conditions. Maybe it's like, 2 hours before insolvency, and we'll give you a tip, or we'll pay out whoever does it based on like this flow calculator. But maybe Ricochet does something completely different. Maybe they do different time frame, different fee model, whatever. But it kind of gives a little bit more. It's more options to, I guess, choose, right? Like we can choose what we want to hit.
Maybe we should add something like a maximum tip amount to the generic approval.
Yeah, it could be extension next, right? So I don't, to move forward, I think we will keep going forward without a tip model, but maybe tip could be an extension once we have better ideas. That'd be great if we could have a space for gathering this kind of idea. What do you guys think? Should we have some sort of discourse kind of forum, or using GitHub discussion, or for this kind of threaded idea? Currently, we don't have, right? We just use Discord and ad hoc discussion in the Discord, this kind of thing. We don't have yet.
I mean, I have a Discord server for like the general Sentinels. I mean, this could be part of that discussion there because it all kind of falls in the same category.
But it'll be lost. Yeah.
Discord doesn't really allow to have longer running structured conversations. I think what Miao meant was discourse. That's this modern forum.
Yeah.
Discourse.
I mean, Discord does actually have true thread support, but I've never seen it in use yet.
I've seen people use.
It's because it's blocked in Superfluid.
Oh, is it? I didn't know this.
Yeah, only Superfluid team can do it.
Okay. I mean, in any case, Discord is a mess for me, at least. I don't know how to use it anymore. So this is the discourse, right, by default. What I wanted to mention is the GitHub also has a feature now called discussion. Yeah. To me, they are all the same, but it's a matter of, do we have another software installed, or we just go with GitHub?
Meow, what do you think about what I just put in the chat? So if you look how Faye do it, there's like this forum website kind of where you propose different discussion points, but also like Faye, like implementation ideas.
Yeah.
This is like a little more, right? Is a little more formal.
Oh, yeah. This looks like Discourse. I think this is Discourse.
Yeah, this is Discourse.
Oh, this is Discourse? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Discourse is a general software, yeah. Okay. Well, the EIP is in GitHub, right? So there's different choices. Yeah, we'll think about it, and we'll set up more formal kind of proposal systems. I mean, the takeaway is, I think there's something to be said about incentive mechanism. Probably could be an extension for the thing we're building here, adding a tip semantic in the future. But we started without tip because it's pretty. It takes time to find a way how to implement the tips. Tony, if you could help, I mean, I would love to start with use cases, right? If you guys are one that using it, maybe help to contribute some of the idea, like how would you use a tip system? That would be helpful for us to design anything instead of designing out of thin air.
Yeah. Definitely. We would definitely love to do that. I think it's a little more. So the tip amount is when you start decentralizing the bot network. Yeah, but definitely, man, definitely love to do that.
Cool stuff. We have a couple of minutes left. Anyone wants to discuss something else, whatever?
Yeah. Oh no, Sonny, you go.
Yeah, I can just bring up the ACL use case I was kind of mentioning in the chat on the Rex Bank. So what we're kind of doing with the Rex Bank is, well, the Rex Bank lets you borrow against RIC tokens currently. So you can borrow UCCX against your ricochet governance tokens. And currently we have like a lot of implied interest revenue, but a lot of these people who borrow from the Rex Bank aren't planning on repaying their loans. And so that interest revenue is just implied. And so we're not receiving it. So Mike and I had the idea of making a Rex Bank where the interest payment is paid in real time, right? So in order to be borrowing from the Rex Bank, you have to be paying your interest rate in real time. There's interest payments in real time. And if you're not, you're gonna get penalized with like a significantly higher interest rate. So currently, like the way that would work is like you would borrow, and then when you borrow, you would have to like, it's kind of like you create flow, and then on the create flow, you're borrowing, and you receive your principal, and then interest starts flowing out because that's create flow. You're starting a interest payment with the corresponding kind of a borrow amount, and then I think that we like specified user data. We're still working on it, but that interest payment you would have to change that once you repay your loan or you kind of borrow more, right? So that interest payment should go up or down, and so it's easy to do the downwards, right? Like because you could create like a counter flow that would make the effective net flow for the user reduced. But if the user borrowed more, they would have to be paying a higher interest rate, right? And so currently, like you have to start penalizing the user because they're not paying enough interest with a higher interest rate, which would be difficult accounting and everything. If we could just automatically let the Rex Bank super app update the user's flow and have that permission to do so, it would be a lot easier to just have that update immediately and not have to go through any kind of crazy accounting. So I think a lot of the times when it comes to this kind of these flow permissions, it's like kind of like when you're updating flow, like the common solution to reduce downwards is like you create a counter flow to create like that kind of effective net flow and reduce it. But I think it becomes a lot easier when you have that kind of permission given straight to the contract. So that's kind of a use case there with the Rex Bank. Any thoughts there?
So how do you mean that when the contract can automatically adjust? What's the actual process?
Yeah, so let's say I borrowed 1,000 USDC and I'm paying a interest rate of 10%. So I'm basically paying, I'm streaming to the bank, 100 USDC per year in a stream. Let's say I borrow an extra 1,000. That goes up to 2,000. My interest payment should go from 100 to 200 per year. You can't do that automatically, right? You'd have to have the user, him or herself, go and update that flow rate themselves. So currently you just can't do that. You'd have to like start penalizing the user for not paying enough interest. It would be nice if we could have that seamlessly increase or decrease if they repay. So
right. So in that case, we could just allow the app to be the flow operator in that sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, you mentioned one thing that could be actually documented here regarding the parallel idea, which was a very early day idea that how to have a kind of approved flow rate upfront. So it's a kind of loop back super app for stream forwarder or something. Right. So yeah, because you mentioned that technique that some people started to use in early days. So you basically pre-send a large amount of flow rate to this forwarder, and the forwarder sends you back immediately. So you on the net, you only send a deposit. You only spend deposit, but then the forwarder can at any moment adjust this loopback flow rate, right? So you can adjust to lower one and you can send to. So then the user completely off the kind of automate everything or delegate everything to the forwarder. So that was one technique that being using by some of the apps. So I just wanted to comment on that. Yeah. Okay, so in general, I think the ACL design we will take it in. It's now our next sprints basically. Just one heads up is that this sprint we already finishing, but not complete yet. It's a 0.8 solidity upgrade. So we were kind of pondering between 0.7 compatibility or not. We're kind of trying now because we tell us if we're wrong, but we see that most of the project is 0.8 anyway, so we kind of don't even try to have a 0.7 compatibility. So if anyone has objection, we could actually do extra work to make a 0.7 compatible from the interfaces perspective. If no, then I guess we'll just move everything to 0.8 starting from the next release, which should be next weekish. And after next week, then it's we're gonna work on the ACL for the sprint. So that's the update.
Yeah, may I ask for one thing?
Yeah.
The clip deposit issue. I'm sorry. Sorry to bring up, but yeah, any progress on this matter? It's still something which we have to deal with on our front.
Yeah, according to the current plan, we're going to have a look of how the clip deposit is generally calculated and used in term, or reviewing the entire real-time deposit, real-time balance semantic. So should be in parallel with ACL. So, but since we need to do the investigation first, and then perhaps after that we can come up with a plan. But yeah, it's not forgotten. Sorry, that's what I can say.
Okay. No, good. Yeah, good.
Yeah, we might just come up with a simpler solution. Well, since you know the context, I don't know if anybody else knows the full context, but I think just for you, I think the simple solution we might just go with is forget about the case that we don't want the super app to shoot themselves in the foot. That's one of the reasons that it was designed in such a way that the super app would only allow it to forward exact same amount of flow rate or slightly slower. Most of the cases slightly slower. So that was mostly the case. So that way, the super app can never shoot themselves in the foot. But you could remove that, and then your life will be easier.
Yeah, that would be great in terms of short-term fix. Yeah.
All right. The reason why it needs to review that part is actually there's one kind of design mistake in the IDA. Mistake in a way that current IDA using the deposit for withholding the money that is not approved by the subscriber, right? Index subscriber. And that's actually wrong semantic. It's actually getting fixed in the specification. And the correct semantic would be those money are withheld by the IDA. They are not deposit. Because deposit or the buffer, nowadays we call it buffer, I'm sorry. The buffer is the one that is supposed to be liquidatable by the Sentinel. For IDA deposit is never the case, and it's misnamed. So that's why would rather review that altogether as opposed to just do a patch fix to things. So that was a reason. Maybe. Because I might change around that kind of part of code a bit more than just to the clip deposit. I think you also have another concern about I lost my train of thought. So around that deposit, there was another thing, if you can remind me.
Yes. Deposit and how it interacts with the minimum deposit feature. So it relates to stream splitting. So one incoming stream to super app, we split the stream in the super app in two directions now, but you can imagine use cases where you want to split it to three to pay a referrer, split it one more to pay your taxation, like one stream in, many splits. But doing all this splitting with a minimum kind of buffer, I'm not sure it's so trivial, like, because deposit, you just forward the whole deposit and then you're free to play. But with minimum buffer, like, yeah.
Yeah, there was something else, but on this one, I would say probably not easy to find a general way. And you would definitely have to have enough minimal deposit. Besides, we haven't enabled the minimal deposit yet.
Yeah.
So even for the layer 2 deployment, we're gonna announce fairly soon the asking for deployment. We will not have the minimal deposit feature. So that's one of the reasons why we do want to review that all together with the team first before we patch fix things there.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. Thanks for that.
Right.
I would say, I think in the short term, we could simply raise the deposit to be 2x or something of the normal deposit.
That's one way to patch fix, yes. All right, great. What do you want to talk about next time? What's interesting in 2 weeks?
I'd really like to learn more about the multi-app layers, or the multiple like app levels.
All right.
Joshua, once I got you on the phone, actually no, sorry, please go ahead, Meow. This is complete tangential. But yeah.
Yeah, do you actually see any reason to do multi-level app? Do you have any use case in general? I mean, that's a feature that would. Way too many.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have one off the top of my head. It's the idea of creating like standardized tokenized cash flows. So imagine if you could tokenize your salary, and everyone has like a standard kind of salary token that's tokenized. Like you could make that composable with a lot of other kind of super apps, such as like the Supercard dApp. Instead of having it all in like one contract, you can like literally like stake your salary token and then kind of like start getting revolving credit against it, instead of having like the staking done inside the contract. Is kind of like a multi-level kind of situation there that makes it composable with other things.
That's very interesting to hear.
You could also have basically a stream splitter super app. So like if, let's say, for example, I wanted to accept the salary stream, but I wanted, let's say 10% of my monthly income to go towards a ricochet market, right? Like DCA into that, then I could basically have a super app that receives a stream and then creates a smaller stream out to a ricochet contract, which then IDAs the other asset back in. I think that would be really cool. There's also some really cool stuff that I found building the IDA library, like some of the IDA callbacks that you could kind of do some pretty funky stuff, but you got to have, multiple super apps to be able to actually fully take advantage of it, I think.
Right. The reason we can't enable is because the current architecture is not very easy to reason the reentrance, right? So there's currently a global reentrance protection, and that prevents in the production level to have multiple levels. I'm hoping that in the version 2, which is being spec'd out, can have those much better reason about with a different way of building it. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's less like a rush for it, because I have heard a lot of concerns about it, but just to like kind of understand it a little bit better, like what all that means for super apps, right? Like things like cascading liquidations and stuff like that. Like I don't know. There's just a lot of stuff around it that it just doesn't seem like it's been discussed very much, at least when I've been around.
Yeah, I mean, that was a discussion in the very early days when designing the protocol. That was why it was there in the first place. But since then, never picked up again, because there wasn't very clear idea of how can we use it. But which is one of the thing about Superfluid. A lot of things built on top of it. I never imagined. I didn't bother to. I didn't know many things, right? So I think with super like multi-level super app, there's even more stuff that we cannot imagine here even, right? So you already have some ideas, but many people can come up with new idea. I think that's the beauty of it, if you can make it secure and happen. It's a very tricky thing to build it secure. So I would, yeah, let's see. hopefully the V2 can make it happen.
Cool.
Joshua, one thing. Did you see, you remember maybe last week I messaged you about a new agreement, constant transfer agreement?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, I actually have to jump because it is 11 o'clock, but
yeah, this
yeah,
is the whole...
we should. What's that?
No, go on.
Meow, I think you're muted. Your mic is.
Okay, how about we continue separately and we'll rejoin
Yeah.
in 2 weeks. Let's discuss some more. There's a lot of things we can discuss. Hopefully in 2 weeks I can show you something more also. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. There's a lot of inputs. Thank you.
Yeah, have a good one, guys. Also, Tony, if you could message me, we'll continue that conversation for next time.
Perfect.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Have a good one, guys.
Everybody, thanks for the invite. Take care.